There are moments in history that feel rehearsed, carefully staged, as if the world was meant to see only one version of the truth, while another waited patiently in the shadows. Princess Diana's life is remembered as one of those moments, a fairy tale that turned tragic. A shy young woman stepping into a royal role she never truly fit. But beneath the familiar images, white dresses, flashing cameras, silent tears, there is a deeper story that was never meant to be examined closely. A story written not in headlines, but in bloodlines. Because Diana Spencer was never the ordinary outsider the world was told she was. Her presence inside the British monarchy was not an accident of romance or fate. It was the quiet return of something England had spent centuries burying. A legacy shaped by scandal, illegitimacy, and political fear. A lineage stretching back more than 500 years into the most dangerous corners of royal history. And once you see it, the fairy tale disappears. What remains is something far more unsettling. Diana did not marry into royalty. She came from it. For generations, the public narrative was simple. Diana Spencer was presented as a commoner by royal standards, aristocratic, yes, but safely distant from the crown. A young woman chosen for her beauty, her gentleness, her ability to soften a monarchy that had grown cold and remote. This story was comforting. It made the monarchy feel approachable, human. But it wasn't the truth. The Spencer family was not a peripheral noble house orbiting the throne. It was one of the oldest, most deeply entangled bloodlines in English history. Long before the name Windsor existed, the Spencers were already woven into the machinery of power. Their lineage did not merely brush against royalty. It absorbed it, quietly, patiently, over centuries. And much of that absorption came from places the crown could never acknowledge openly. To understand Diana's ancestry, you have to understand how monarchy truly worked, not as a romantic institution, but as a system of survival. Kings did not simply rule through law. They ruled through blood, and blood, inconvenient as it was, had a way of refusing to disappear. Henry VIII understood this better than most. He is remembered for his wives, his temper, his obsession with legacy. But beneath all of that was a single fear that haunted him: extinction, the end of his line, the collapse of everything he believed his blood represented. And so, when his marriage failed to produce the male heir he craved, he looked elsewhere. The result was Henry Fitzroy. Fitzroy was not hidden away like so many illegitimate children of kings. He was acknowledged, paraded, honored, given a name that declared exactly what he was: the king's son. Henry VIII treated him as a living proof of his own vitality, a symbol of masculine success in a court obsessed with succession. But Fitzroy was never allowed the crown. His legitimacy stopped just short of power, and when he died young, the official line moved on as if he had never existed. Officially, unofficially, his blood did not vanish. It filtered into the aristocracy through carefully arranged marriages. It traveled quietly through noble families who understood the value of proximity. Without visibility, over time, that bloodline found a home in the Spencer family. Diana carried it. She also carried something even more controversial: Catherine Carey. History records Catherine as the daughter of Mary Boleyn, sister to Anne Boleyn. Officially, her father was Mary's husband. Unofficially, historians have long whispered another possibility. Mary Boleyn was one of Henry VIII's acknowledged companions. The timing of Catherine's birth, the king's continued favor, and her unusual access at court have fueled centuries of quiet debate. If Catherine Carey was Henry VIII's daughter, she represents another branch of royal blood that was never allowed to stand in the light. And once again, that bloodline passed forward not through the crown, but through the nobility, through families like the Spencers, who became, over generations, repositories of what the monarchy could not afford to keep openly. This is the pattern most people miss. Royal blood does not disappear when it is declared inconvenient. It is redirected. The Spencer family did not simply collect titles. They absorbed the aftermath of royal mistakes. Illegitimate children, scandalous unions, pre-contract marriages that threatened succession. Each one carried political danger, but also undeniable value. Consider Eleanor Butler. Her alleged pre-contract marriage to Edward IV created one of the most explosive succession crises in English history. If valid, it meant the king's later marriage and his children were illegitimate. That single claim reshaped the Wars of the Roses, justified Richard III's seizure of power, and ultimately paved the way for the Tudor dynasty itself. Eleanor Butler's story is often treated as a footnote, but through lines like hers, Diana's ancestry connects directly to the moment England's monarchy fractured and rebuilt itself. She did not stand outside that history. She embodied it. Diana's bloodline also traces back to the Beaufort family descendants of John of Gaunt and Catherine Swynford, a lineage legitimized by royal decree, yet permanently barred from succession. The Tudors themselves rose from this contested bloodline, carrying the stain of conditional legitimacy. In other words, the Tudor dynasty, the very foundation of modern English monarchy, was built on blood once considered unacceptable. Diana carried that legacy too. And then there were the Stuarts. James to Charles II, kings remembered as much for their private lives as their reigns. Their courts were filled with acknowledged companions, children born outside marriage, and bloodlines deliberately steered away from the throne but never erased. The descendants of these unions did not vanish into obscurity. They became dukes, earls, power brokers. Many of them married into the Spencer family. By the time Diana was born, her ancestry included multiple unacknowledged royal lines: Tudor, Stuart, Plantagenet, interwoven through centuries of aristocratic strategy. This was not coincidence. The Spencer family did not behave like passive nobles drifting through history. Their marriages show a pattern. Repeated unions with families carrying controversial royal connections. Lineages heavy with inheritance, but light on legitimacy. They became custodians of royal excess. Not rebels, not claimants, but preservers. Which reframes Diana's role entirely. When she married Prince Charles, it was presented as a modern fairy tale, a fresh start for a monarchy in need of warmth. But behind the scenes, the marriage solved an older problem one the public never saw. By the late 20th century, the royal family faced a quiet crisis. Generations of intermarriage had narrowed the bloodline. Genetic diversity had diminished. Symbolically and biologically, the monarchy was becoming fragile. Diana Spencer brought something rare: depth. Her lineage was not just ancient, it was broad. It carried strands from rival dynasties, forbidden heirs, and sideline bloodlines that had been excluded not because they were weak but because they were politically dangerous. Through her, those lines returned, not by conquest, not by rebellion, by marriage. And the consequences of that return live on in her sons. William and Harry are not simply Windsor heirs. They are the convergence point of centuries of divided ancestry, legitimate and illegitimate, celebrated and erased, official and forbidden. This is why Diana never fit the mold. Her discomfort within royal protocol was not immaturity. It was inheritance. She descended from women who challenged power, from bloodlines shaped by exclusion rather than obedience. Her emotional openness, her resistance to cold hierarchy, her instinct to connect rather than perform all of it echoed patterns long present in her ancestry. The palace tried to contain her. It failed. And when she died, the public grief felt disproportionate because something deeper had been lost. Not just a woman, not just a princess, a bridge. Diana represented the reconciliation of England's fractured royal past. She carried the memory of dynasties that law tried to erase, but blood refused to forget. Through her, the monarchy regained something that had spent centuries suppressing authentic continuity. Her sons inherited that inheritance. William, in particular, embodies convergence. His lineage reunites branches long separated by politics and fear. He carries not only the crown's legal authority, but the ancestral depth medieval thinkers once believed defined true kingship. And that changes the meaning of succession. Because monarchy has never truly been about documents or ceremonies. It has always been about continuity. About the quiet persistence of lineage beneath the noise of history. Diana Spencer was not a detour in that story. She was its correction. The dark Tudor secret hidden in her blood is not scandal for its own sake. It is a reminder that power does not vanish when it is denied. It waits. It adapts. It survives in places history chooses not to look. And sometimes, it returns wearing a blue dress, descending the staircase, carrying 500 years of unfinished history in her veins.